Hi, everybody. Ross Crystal here, and thanks for joining me. She's best known as the former host and anchor of the syndicated news magazine Inside Edition. Deborah Norville on her career as a journalist, her latest gig as a game show host, and some painful memories of her time hosting the Today Show.
The net of it all was I was out on my ear. Jane and I were both terribly hurt by it. Two women who had a great relationship, both on camera and off, were wounded because of what those nitwits in the media did. And I left the Today Show. I jumped before they could push me. But the Chicago Tribune guy really didn't have it wrong when he said I'd been used up and left for dead on the side of the road.
One of the greats in the business, Deborah Norville, joins me up front right here, right now. Joining me now up front, Deborah Norville, former longtime anchor of Inside Edition and currently the host of the syndicated game show Perfect Line, which also airs on the Game Show Network, so you can either see her on the stations across the country or on the Game Show Net. It is so good to see you. Oh, also, before you say hi, author of the book, Thank You Power, Making the Science of Gratitude Work for You, a New York Times bestseller. And with all of that said, hi, Deborah. So good to see you.
So good to see you, Ross. I was getting ready for this. I was trying to think, when did we do our very first interview? And I think it might be, forgive me if I say this, 30 plus years ago at the NAPI television convention in Las Vegas.
How scary is that? And that was about the time that you were going to Inside Edition.
I had just started Inside Edition. It was my very first NAPI. Back then, it was a huge spectacle. If you imagine a Kmart with nothing but TV shows for sale, that pretty well describes what NAPI is. Entire convention floor filled with awesome, crazy people, crazy dressed up people trying to sell their TV show, right. And station guys from literally all over the world there to kick the tires and try to do deals. It was fascinating.
It went on. It was either in Vegas or in New Orleans or Dallas. It's because the business has changed.
Yeah.
I miss the camaraderie and the meeting everybody and all that, but the business has changed so much for the better, for the worse, or it's indifferent.
Change is a constant. Change is the only constant in life. And the fact that you and I are doing this interview over the technology that we're using, and people will be consuming this interview the way they will, on their phones, through their social media, all the different ways that you'll be putting this conversation that we're having out to the universe. Back when you and I first met, there was one way, well, two ways to do it. We would have the interview and you would put it on the TV stations that took your material, or you'd write it up and it'd get in a magazine or newspaper. That was it. So today there's so many more opportunities, but of course the flip side, the downside for those who really love the heyday of the golden era of television, is the numbers have come down, not as many people watching, the advertising, consequently, dollars have shrunk considerably, and it's a tough business to be in these days.
You know, the other way, this whole mechanism of doing an interview like this, COVID changed everything. Through Zoom, we were able to develop the technology, but you either had to have a camera with an over-the-shoulder person going with you, which is how I interviewed you when you did Thank You Power.
Yeah,
I came to the
CBS
Television Center, and this makes it really, you're able to do it, no matter where in the world. So I think that's a plus. Now, after 30 years anchoring an incredible program, you move from anchoring the news to hosting the games.
Yeah.
And by the
I'm
way,
a game show host. How crazy is that?
Well, I was saying you're following some interesting footsteps. Mike Wallace, Hugh Downs, news people who went to the game.
They were game show hosts first.
The other way. They were the other way.
Yeah,
right?
They did it the other way. They were game show guys, and then they got into the broadcast news side. I went the other way around. And look, it's a different world that I'm living in than Hugh Downs and Mike Wallace. That was more than a minute ago. It was the right time for me. You know, when I joined Inside Edition, it was challenged. It was rightly labeled tabloid television. Viewers were shunning that kind of exploitative television. And Roger and Michael King, who owned King World, which produced Inside Edition at the time, reached out to me, and they really wanted to put a more journalistic spin on it and try to get away from some of that stuff. And I remember looking at Inside Edition and seeing that a lot of the stories that they were doing, aside from the beach blanket bingo, gotcha kind of stuff, were the same sorts of stories that I was doing working on the magazine show I was on at the time at CBS News. And in fact, there was a story I had done in Nebraska about a little girl who was being stalked by a guy, a 10-year-old little girl who was being stalked by a guy, and stalking laws didn't apply for children. So she was truly defenseless from a legal point of view. Inside Edition did the same story.
Yeah.
And I watched that story. They did a pretty darn good job. So I thought, well, you know what? I think this could work. And that's why I joined them. But, and I will take credit, a big part of the credit, but not all the credit, of course, as part of a wonderful team. We got it out of the tabloid television. We made it America's most respected syndicated news magazine. We made it appointment television. And you mentioned COVID. I think during COVID, it was really our finest hour because we were all scattered all over the place. We were producing the show from probably 15 different people, 15 different places from which material was coming. And I was shooting it from my home, standing in front of a big TV on which I was playing a video screen of the Inside Edition studio. We shoot Inside Edition on a green screen. So the studio was exactly the same studio because it doesn't exist. It's just a piece of videotape.
It's
virtual. So I stood there. I happened to own a camera setup. Now, at the time, I had no idea how to use it. But guess what? I learned. I set that thing up. I'm FaceTiming with my cameraman from California. Eric is showing me, okay, that button there, do this. And we figured it out. And the great thing about Inside Edition during COVID is you forgot that I wasn't in the studio.
Right.
And for a moment, we were like the one show in a lot of cases that you'd see all day where it didn't look like you were in somebody's kitchen. I looked like I was in my studio. The only thing we didn't have was the shoulder graphics, the little boxes with the pictures. But otherwise, we did it. So Inside Edition was a great run for me. But my goodness, after 30 years, what else can I do, right? I mean, there were no news stories, right? It was another mass shooting, another this, another that. The 14th time we'd done that. And it just was, 30 is a great number, and it was time for me to move on. But I had no idea, Ross, that I was going to have as much fun doing a game show as I discovered when I started hosting The Perfect Line. And I'll tell you, you and I have known each other a long time. And I remember the very first show, the very first time, and we'd shot the pilot, but the pilot isn't with the set and all the bells and whistles. So nobody really knew if I could do this or not, including me. I thought I could, but I didn't know. So I'm standing there and they have it's a tiny little intro. And now here's your host, Deborah Norville. And I hear the voice go, and now here's your host. And I remember looking up at the rafters and seeing the lights and stuff that were, pointed down on the set. And I'm behind the scenery about to walk out. And I just looked up and I said, God, if you want me to be good at this, now would be the time. Thank you, Jesus. And I marched out. And it was great. And I felt great. I felt good. I loved being with the contestants. I've been in an empty studio. We didn't have camera operators even. It was literally me, the makeup artist, and the stage manager. And I loved them both dearly, but it was great to have a studio audience, to have 4 excited contestants who, they've got on pretty outfits and they're all made up and they got a chance to go home with 15 grand at the end of the day. It was just a delight.
What's the difference in the skill set from anchoring a news broadcast to hosting a game show? What did you draw on, and how did you have to change?
Well, I think the common aspects of it were, you got to think fast on your feet. If you're doing live news, you've got to be able to react to whatever happens. And if you begin to get off script and not say the right thing the way you're supposed to say it, you have to talk your way back on, and hopefully the viewers never know that you've gotten off script. With me, when I do that, this eyebrow goes up. I can't control it. When it goes up, that's my tell. I'm off my script, but hopefully the only thing that's giving away is my eyebrow, that I'm actually making some sense as I'm talking, and I'll get back to where the script is. So I think the fast on your feet is definitely the same. It's also knowing that at the end of the day, you've got an executive producer, you've got a stage manager, you've got audio. There are a lot of people who have a lot of responsibilities, but at the end of the day, your job, whether you're the anchor or the host, is to keep the thing from going down the tubes. And so if stuff starts going sideways, your job is to stop it. Your job is to fix it elegantly so that nobody knows. So what was different was the contestants. What was different was having an audience to react to. And once it took me a few shows to figure out, like, oh, wait, I can be me. And so then I would be like, I'd walk up to the desk and I'd just be like this. Because they would say something ridiculous. And I'd go, are you hoping right now that your mom's not watching? Because she's going to talk to you about this, isn't she? And the guy would blush and he'd go, yeah, I didn't. I said, how about, let's do this over. And you know how Mork and Mindy, how Mork could go, he could do the countdown backwards. I would do the countdown backwards and then like, let's start over, shall we? And it was just a fun moment. Whether it made the final edit or not, it put everybody at ease. And I think it let the contestants know that, yeah, you're on national television right now, but it's okay. Deb's going to make sure it's okay for you and you're in a safe place.
Were you more nervous, less nervous when you prayed to Jesus? And was the butterflies there?
It wasn't butterflies. It was just, help me do this well.
Right, but
help me do this well. It wasn't like, that kind of nerves. I'm trying to think. I don't really get those kind of nerves. I haven't in a very long time, and I think that's because I over prepare. And so that centers me, that calms me, that helps me know that,
Were you like that as a kid? Did you prepare for the tests? Did you study?
Well, I did. I remember in home ec, in Georgia, everybody had to take home ec in high school, and we had to sew an apron. Who the hell wants an apron? But anyway, that was our project. And I've been sewing my own clothes since I was 9 years old. And I remember Miss Grant coming up to me after everybody turned in their aprons, and she said, Debbie, did you sew everybody's apron? I said, well, and I named 2 girls. They didn't ask me to, but I would have if they wanted me to. She said, that wasn't the point of the assignment. So yeah, I'm kind of like an over-prepared person, but it's interesting. When I left the Today Show, I did a national radio show for ABC Radio. It was a talk radio program, 3 hours, 1 hour of newsmaker interviews, 1 hour of, an issue type thing where we had, people who were experts on the subject. And the 3rd hour was open phones. And after about a week, my producer said, Deborah, are you preparing for this? I'm like, yeah, I'm reading everything I can, and I'm researching, and I'm downloading a lot of wire copy. And he said, stop, don't do that. He said,
spontaneous.
He said, you sound too smart. You sound like you know all this stuff. And the people at home are going, well, I don't know anything that she's talking about. I said, so you don't want me to prepare? He said, no, just you read the paper every day. That's fine. Like, great. So that was just like 5 hours in my day that I got back. And so, yeah, I tend to go overboard, but I feel like somebody's paying me money to do what it is I'm doing. I feel like that's my end of the bargain, is to be super well prepared, but I do tend to go overboard sometimes.
I think there's a cross between the two. I used to, back when I did my show in Washington, Panorama, Larry King used to come on a lot, and he was the believer. You don't look at I don't look at the book. I don't look at the book. I want to be surprised with the. And I
disagree with Larry, because you need to know what's in that book.
You got to know what's in the book. I'm with you on that. I do like the spontaneous moments, and so I think it's halfway. What your producer said. Get some.
You need to be prepared. Well. That's crazy not to be.
You grew up in Atlanta, or where in Georgia?
Just north of Atlanta, a little town called Dalton, Georgia. It is where the wall-to-wall carpeting industry was founded.
Suburban kid, country kid?
Country.
You're a country girl.
Yeah. My high school graduating class had 162 people.
Did you know at all, grade school, high school, that you wanted to be in this business?
Gosh, no. No, my hometown, we had no television station. We got Atlanta TV and we got Chattanooga, Tennessee TV. We had one AM radio station. And no, I was a senior in high school. I wanted to be a lawyer. I had it all figured out. I was going to go to West Georgia College and then go to Emory University Law School. I wanted to be a litigator. I loved research. And the last 2 weeks of my senior year, I was in a contest representing the state of Georgia at the America's Junior Miss pageant. It wasn't a bathing suit contest. It was a pageant for high school senior girls. 50% of your score was your grades in your judge's interview. And then you had to have talent. And I didn't have any talent. My talent was modeling clothes that I had made. So I presented my talent right after Utah sang an aria from La Boheme. The contrast
Oh,
could not have been more drastic. That was La Boheme, and now Debbie Norville will demonstrate her sewing skills. But the woman who was in charge of the Georgia pageant was so horrified at the idea that I'd won. She said, "Well, honey, don't you sing while you sew, or don't you tap dance while you sew?" I said, "No, ma'am. When I sew, I just sit there." And she put her finger in my face and she said, "By the time you get to Mobile, young lady, you're going to know magic. You're going to do magic in sewing." I'm like, okay. So the guy who did like the balloon animals at the kids' birthday parties taught me a few really hokey magic tricks. And I magically changed clothes on this. It was just awful. But, and needless to say, I did not win. I got $100 for a recipe contest the Kraft Foods people had. But I saw the guys who were putting the lights up and building the stage sets and doing everything to get ready for the telecast. And I saw that they were as friendly and cheerful at the end of the day, working like dogs, as they were at the beginning. And I thought, that looks like fun. How do you take research, which is what I really liked about law, and this production stuff that just looks like a ball? How do you put those two together? And I dreamt up to be a TV reporter. So 2 weeks before I graduated high school, I changed my mind about what I was going to do. I decided I had to go to a different school, registered for the University of Georgia, took this test where you could get credit for college courses, and did well enough that I not only got to skip the courses, I got credit for my entire freshman year. So I went through Georgia in 3 years. And while I was at Georgia, I got an internship for public TV, which was spotted by the station manager of the CBS affiliate. So in between my junior and senior years of college, I was hired as a gopher at the CBS station in Atlanta. And the third day, they were low on reporters, and they said, "Norville, go cover this story." I had not yet had news writing. I had no idea how you covered a news story, but I figured I'll just keep that to myself. And I went out, I had a report on the 6 o'clock news, Debbie Norville, TV5 Eyewitness News, and I was on the air pretty much every day after that. I mean,
WA,
how lucky is that?
WAGA, right?
Wagga, yeah.
WAGA. And then you went, so you literally started out not knowing how to do the job, and you
No,
learned
but
on
then
the
the end of
job.
the summer, I took
Yep.
news writing. So my teachers were in a terrible position at Georgia because, oh gosh, she must be doing grade A work or they would have fired her. So we have to give her an A.
Then you go from WAGA in Atlanta to a place I work, except I was on the radio side. You go to the merchant. I don't know if you were in the merchandise mart at the
Yep.
time. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. We worked at WMAQ, both of
I
us.
went to WMAQ, the
You on the
NBC owned and
teams.
operated station in Chicago. I was there for 5 years, started as a reporter, left as a Monday through Friday anchor, and then came to New York and joined NBC News there as the anchor of NBC News at Sunrise. I succeeded Connie Chung, who had been promoted to a news magazine that she was doing at the time with Roger Mudd. So this was a 6 o'clock a.m. newscast that came on just before the Today Show. And there'd be times when Jane Pauley would call in sick, and I'd get this while I'd be working on, be on my computer typing Sunrise. Oh gosh, we didn't have computers yet.
That's right.
This
And
is
you
so long ago.
definitely
We were
did
on
not have
typewriters. Yeah.
computers.
So I'd get this call, can you fill in for Jane? Like, yeah, I'll be there as soon as I finish up here. So it was crazy, but it was fun. I had a ball.
By the way, she was at Channel 5 as well
Well,
at
here's
one
what's
point.
so funny, Ross.
Because I
When
was
I
there at
was
the time.
signing my contract at WMAQ, Channel 5 in New York, in Chicago, I don't know why I didn't have the contract signed before I moved up there, but for some reason I didn't. And I'm in the news director's office, and I signed the contract, and I slide it over for him to sign.
Hmm.
And it was Paul Beavers, and he writes the P,
Oh, Paul. Uh-huh.
and then he stops and he looks at me, and kind of goes like that, and he goes, "How old are you anyway?" And I'm like, you can't
You
ask
can't
me
do that.
that. That's not a legal question. You're not allowed. And then I'm like, there's only a P on there. He hadn't signed the thing yet. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm 23. And he shakes his head. And I'm like, oh God, I don't have a job. And then he finishes signing his name. And as he's finishing his signature, he says, "I think that's how old Jane was when she started here."
Oh, my.
Because he had been there when Jane Pauley was there. And I
And,
just go, phew, well, that works.
okay. And then just condense. You're at Sunrise. The Today Show comes along.
Yep.
I mean, it's really almost now in the history books. you're doing the Today Show, and then the change comes.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Well,
What
I
did
filled
it?
in a bunch. I mean, it was so sweet. Jane, I'd get these messages, at that point we did have computers, and I'd get a top line, which is how you communicated intra-office. And it would say Paulie, and then it would say, aside from the headache and throwing up part, can you be me today? And that would be the clue that, oh, I'm going to do today after I finish Sunrise. And it was great. It was good for everybody. Jane had somebody who could back her up, because
Mhm.
all these days she would have to go have the headache, throw up during the commercials. She just didn't have anybody that could spell her
Sure.
when she wasn't feeling well. So that was good for her. It was obviously a thrill for me to get to be on the Today Show and to meet all these interesting people and do these incredible, interviews about these amazing subjects. And everything was hunky dory. And then they promoted me to newsreader. The 7 o'clock, 7:25, or what, 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30. 5-minute news things they would have on the show. And
Yeah.
John Palmer, who I replaced, took my old job at Sunrise, and suddenly the press went crazy. Jane and Brian were totally on board with it, which was the first question I asked. John Palmer's job was secure. Anyway, long story short, it turned to a big you-know-what kind of show. And net, I became the co-host of the Today Show, but the publicity around it was so damaging, and the media people at NBC were just abysmal at handling it. They put a gag order on me. I assume they had one on Jane too. The net of it all was I was out on my ear. Jane and I were both terribly hurt by it. Two women who had a great relationship, both on camera and off, were wounded because of what those nitwits in the media did. And I left the Today Show. I jumped before they could push me. But the Chicago Tribune guy really didn't have it wrong when he said I'd been used up and left for dead on the side of the road. And that is a direct quote.
Is that Gary Deep?
Nope, it wasn't Gary. It was Ken Tucker of the Chicago Tribune.
Oh, okay. Oh, my gosh.
And it was not incorrect, but
Right.
man, oh man, did that hurt. And Ross, I went through a major depression. I mean, didn't get out of bed, didn't brush my hair, did nothing but nurse the baby and go back into the fetal position.
How'd you get over it?
I was like that for a very long time.
How did you get over that?
Well, I wrote my first book about that. It was called Back on Track. And the subtitle was How to Straighten Out Your Life When It Throws You a Curve. And the reality is all of us will have curveballs thrown in our life. Most of it won't happen on national television. But once I had gotten myself back together, I felt like I'd learned a lot and I wanted to share it. And to answer your question, I had inadvertently, because nobody does it deliberately, done what many people do. I had allowed my definition of who I was to be what I do. And who you are is not what you do. Yes, you're an excellent interviewer and broadcaster, but that is not who Ross Crystal is. Who I am, I had allowed myself to be defined as that lady on TV, the golden girl, as the media guys called me. And I had to get back in touch with who I am. And the way you do that is you figure out what it is that you are doing when you are in what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi would call the flow. Because that helps you identify what your innate qualities are when you are at zero gravity, right? When you're at that frictionless thing. Mm-hmm. And I figured out that what I am, who I am, is a connector. I love bringing people together. I love connecting people to emotions. My books are about connecting people to ideas that will help them make their lives better and connecting them to those ideas in a way that they can understand. So I'll take the highbrow science and I'll translate it down so normal people like you and me can understand it. And as a journalist, I connected people to events of the day that were making headlines. I connected people to individuals who were doing groundbreaking things that were going to change their world. I remember in 1980 doing a story about recombinant DNA. And we all know what that's all about now, and mRNA. Mm-hmm. Think about the COVID vaccine that saved millions of lives was mRNA.
That's right.
I was reporting on that in 1980. Who knew that 40 years later, that was going to be something the entire world would be talking about because it helped solve this virus crisis that the world was experiencing. So that's what I do. I'm a connector, and I'd lost touch with that. You don't have to be on TV to be a connector. So when I realized who I am as a connector, who I am as someone who thinks it's a privilege to be married, who I am as someone who's a child of God and believe that God has a plan for my life, and I'm supposed to try to execute it as well as I can, but He doesn't expect perfection. I know who I am. And once I got back in touch with that, I got back on track. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can't get back in TV. And when I get back in TV, at some point I will leave, but at that point, it'll be on my terms. So it was great to start back on radio.
Hmm.
And then I was at CBS News as a correspondent. And then I was expecting my second child. And I thought, I can't do this and do it long distance as a correspondent. And CBS wanted me to anchor one night on the weekends, which would have been great. But I was going
Hmm.
to be on the road the rest of the time. So I just thought, I can't do that to my family. So that's when I moved to Inside Edition, a career move made for my family. And I left Inside Edition for the same reason. My family's grown. The kids have flown the nest. They've got their own little nests now. And my husband is changing his life. He's still, doing his business, but not in New York City 24/7 like he used to be. And I want to be with my husband. So it seemed the right time to move on. I would have shot the show remotely. That didn't work for Inside Edition. Great. I offered to build a studio at my expense. They said no, thank you. Okay, great. We shook
But you
hands,
had
we
done
parted
inside,
ways, and it was perfect.
but you had done it virtually before.
Of
They,
course.
when you did it virtually, were you in New York or were you in another city at the
I
time?
was in another city and it was flawless. I had the same setup everybody in television had. It had the live view unit, which looks like a
Sure.
little tiny backpack. It used the Ethernet to plug into the camera. And you had as much redundancy and zero latency in the signal um, as you have doing in the studio.
Who
I
was
mean, if you
running the
think about it,
telephone?
my offices were here
Yeah.
and the Inside Edition studio was across the street. That's remote.
Same thing.
That's not the same
Who,
place.
who a teleprompter was remote as well?
No, that was my hands. So the teleprompter was great. I had a screen. I had a little mirror set up on my camera. So
Uh-huh.
imagine the way we're looking at
Right.
so imagine the keyboard of the computer is an iPad that's reflecting up with
Right.
backwards letters, and then the mirror flips it around. It goes over the lens just like a normal teleprompter. And I used my phone. There's an app, and you literally can control the speed by just touching your phone at the right moment. It
You
was
ran a
super duper
network.
easy.
You ran a network show that's fantastic. Which
Yes,
goes to show
yes.
you you can do me a favor. So you did in my as I'm listening to you, you kind of did this from Georgia to Chicago to New York, then fell off a cliff and then came right back up.
Yep.
Came right back up.
Yeah, you
And
could say it was a lucky accident the first time, but you kind of got to give me credit to get there twice.
you bet. And there was something, there's a lot that you learned along the way. But you brought up something, and let me hone in on that just real quick. At your core, at your very core, are you a journalist? Are you an interviewer? Are you a producer? Are you a writer? What
I'm a
do you think
journalist.
you're a
I'm a
journalist? That's your
journalist.
core.
I don't have a news program today that I am reporting for, but I am a journalist. And what that means is I will never make an utterance verbally or in the written form that I cannot back up with facts. I just won't. I speak in bumper stickers to my kids because they tune me out after about 5 minutes, after 5 words, really. And one of my bumper stickers is facts are your friend. You have to know your facts.
And
And I
when
think
you,
one of the
I
reasons I
agree.
was able to be successful in my career in the days before there was an internet, and an entire, computer system in your hand, I have this ridiculous ability to remember stuff. And I'm sort of a visual processor.
Uh-huh.
And if I've read it, it's really weird. It's like the John Nash and Beautiful Things. I can see it on the page, and then like it's the upper right, and then like third column. I literally like I can almost go back and recreate it. It's freaky. And that's why I
Right.
like an actual paper. It didn't work for me on digital, but on paper it does.
And if you will, after all of that and 30 years of Inside Edition, I watched you pick up a Lifetime Achievement Award, and it brought tears to my eyes. It was real. That was an
Oh,
emotional moment.
thank you.
What was that like for you?
It was fabulous. It was, you find out about these things months before. So that was when the real surprise was. I thought I misunderstood. That just couldn't be correct. But no, I was being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award. I actually have it right here, so I'm
Oh,
gonna show it to you.
absolutely. I was going to say, that's my next question. Where
It
do you?
is actually
Ah,
heavy. So this is it.
yes, it is heavy.
And it's funny, the man got mad at me at the Emmys because apparently I was holding it like this and he kept saying, no, he'd run around, he'd turn it this way. They want to see the writing on the front when they take the pictures. So anyway, so this is it. And it was a beautiful night for so many reasons. First of all, my entire family was there. My son, who lives in Sweden, flew over to
Oh,
California. My other son, whose wife had a baby 3 days before, left her side for the 3 hours of the ceremony so he could be there. My daughter was there. My husband was there. My super good friend, who's a producer, was there with his wife.
oh,
And Deidre Hall, who's
oh,
been one of my longest friends and an icon in daytime television. I mean,
sure.
she is literally the queen of daytime television. Dee gave me the award and gave a beautiful speech beforehand. It was amazing.
Uh,
And I was y'all know how that famous Sally Field thing when she won the Oscar.
they really
And
like me.
yeah, it wasn't like you like me. It was, for me, it was like, whoa, y'all noticed. You
You
saw
bet.
me. I mean,
You bet.
it was that kind of thing. It was lovely.
So you're in a new realm now, a new adventure, new vistas, new
Yeah,
horizons. You're enjoying it. Just a little bit, because it's a clever show, The Perfect Line. It just is,
I think
and you
so.
kind of get hooked into it as you watch. Wait a second, wait. It's simple and yet it difficult all at the same time.
Well, it's not really difficult. What I like about it is because I'm a game show fan, right? So I grew up watching game shows, and I used to get mad when I was a kid and there'd be a space launch because it'd interrupt my show. Not the soap operas, the game shows. And what's cool about the Perfect Line, the way it works is you get points, you get in the
Mhm.
money if you put your item in the proper order. It's all about putting stuff in the right logical order. So it could be the lyrics from the song from Sound of Music, my favorite things. I'll put the first one on the board. It's Bright Copper Kettles. Ross, you're contestant number one. Where does the lyric Warm Woolen Mittens go? Before Bright Copper Kettles or after?
Ah, okay.
You want to sing it?
But I watched one where you had the food, and I grew up. My father's in the food business, and I knew those prices. I said, "Well, no, like you're wrong." And people, "No, no, 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 no. That's not that soy sauce is the last one. That's going to last
Yeah.
forever. That's the
Yeah.
way."
Oh, we've done everything. We've done how long can food stay on the shelf? Soy sauce, I think, can last, was it soy sauce?
3 years. That
Three
was
years. Soy sauce was three. Is that the one you saw? Yeah. Soy sauce can last 3 years. So I learned a ton of stuff. For instance, I'll never eat a carrot and not think about Bakersfield, California. 85% of the carrots grown in America come from Bakersfield. Who knew? Anyway, the deal about Perfect Line is if you haven't and I thank you so much for this interview because I want people to see this show.
yeah.
Because I think when they see this show, look, we're a new show. We don't have the best time slots everywhere. And I'm so grateful to the stations that are broadcasting us. There's one station in Milwaukee that actually took off Inside Edition so that they could put the Perfect Line on. I
Really?
love
Oh,
that
there's
lady. Yeah,
there's
I mean, I'm sorry for Inside Edition, but
which station's that?
It is, I forget the call letters, but it's CBS 58 in
Okay.
Milwaukee. It's
But which
Weibel Broadcasting.
which brings me to that. You can get this show Perfect Line either way on the station, so you can go to the local station in Milwaukee,
Yeah,
or you can get it on the Game Show Network,
you
right?
can get on the Game Show Network. It airs right now. It airs at 4:30, depending on which time zone you're in the Game Show Network. But you can go to my website, deborahnorville.com, and just click right there on the tab that says The Perfect Line. I've got the station line up there because every now and then they'll move it. We got upgraded in Los
Good
Angeles,
idea.
for instance, so I updated it on my website. So the most accurate time listings will be found there.
Terrific. And before we go, I have to ask you about one other thing, which I know nothing of, but you'd still do it. You mentioned you're still knitting. You're still doing all of the.
Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can show you the picture.
That just is amazing to me.
Let's see if it'll come up on the TV because I literally just finished this. And that's
Oh,
me.
oh
I
my.
just finished knitting a Christmas stocking for the brand new grandchild
Oh,
that our son has given us.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
how marvelous that is. That is, you know what? It's all going, I don't know if it's going according to plan, but it's going pretty well.
it's going beautifully. I
Yeah.
wrote a book on gratitude because I live in
I love
gratitude.
that book. That's the thank you power.
Thank you.
Power. Thank you. That is and by the way, we'll end with that. You've always been a gratitude person, haven't you?
Always,
Before it was
always.
fashionable, you were talking gratitude, and that's marvelous.
Hey, look, every religion in the world urges its practitioners to practice gratitude. There is not one faith. It's the one thing that brings all of us together, the practice of gratitude. And if we would just all do it a tiny bit more, our world might be a tiny bit better.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, Deborah, I am grateful to see you again to do this. I hope we do it again.
I would love it.
There's going to be another project. There's going to be another book, or if there's nothing, I love talking with you always.
I've enjoyed it. You've been a blessing to me, Ross, for a lot of decades, and I know your fans and followers are grateful that you continue to do what you do, because I sure am.
It's the perfect line. It's Deborah Norville. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Ross.